God, I didn't know it was that bad.
Brett wrote, I worked hard in the Survivor Series and surprised myself being pleased that I got raves in the Wrestling Observer newsletter for being the best performer. Dave Meltzer wrote, Hart was fantastic. This was long before the internet, and the sheets were the way the fans and even promoters got their info about the business. But I had a problem with anyone who wasn't in the business writing about it as if they knew what they were talking about. I've always maintained that the only way to really know who is a great worker and who isn't is to have wrestled them. My attitude was that Meltzer and others were making a living off of other people's sweat and broken bones by exposing a business they really had no part of. But then I'd come home to my mom reading the sheets with Stu. Promoters were so tight lipped that the only way anyone in the business could learn of anything else going on in the other territories, and sometimes even in their own territory, was from someone outside the business. That was the ultimate irony. Most wrestlers hated the sheets, but they were the first to flock around if someone brought one in the dressing room. I got to tell you, man, it's hard for me to imagine Stu Hart reading the Observer. Do you remember back in the day, guys gathering around and reading it in the locker room and passing it around and all that deal?
Sure. Sure. I remember, look, man, part of the reason that Bill Watts and UWF were praised so much, Watts called Meltzer, had
Oh,
conversations with him. And, in one breath, cussed him. Who's this stupid fucking Mark? He's outsider talking about this shit. And on the other side, we'll talk to him.
yeah.
Now, fed him a lot of shit. And
Really?
the fact that Bill talked to him, I think that helped Bill's reviews in the Observer. And without a doubt, I think that there were a lot of, that's the crazy thing, is that which I always I laugh at. I'm guilty of it myself at times, where you read about something that you allegedly said and or did that you didn't. That's
Right.
made up and a lie and a tall tale that continues on. And you go, well, that's bullshit because that didn't fucking happen. I was there. That's complete bullshit. But then you read something about somebody else in another territory or something else that happened. Oh, goddamn, can you believe that happened? When the answer is in the, can you believe that? In your question, man, because you realize that 90% of the things he's saying about you and your territory and things going on are untrue.
Right.
But you believe what he's saying about other territories and other places that because you're not there, it's being reported on. Well, damn, can you believe that they're having this problem? Until you investigate more and find out, well, it's as untrue as everything else. So that's the irony of it, is that you'll still have people in the industry that will know that the reports on their stuff is not accurate, but but the stuff that they said about that, because I don't like that or I want that to be true, is true. And so you have to view it through the same lens. That's the important part that sometimes we forget.
I want to ask you about something that we fans have heard a lot. Brett wrote in his book that Vince called him to tell him that he had been getting more fan mail than Hulk Hogan, and it was time to turn Brett babyface. Listen, I'm a huge Brett fan. I know that's been debated by people who listen to our show, but we do argue both sides of a lot of different points. But he was one of my favorites as a tag team performer and
Mm-hmm.
certainly as an Intercontinental Champion early in my career, in my wrestling fandom. But the idea that he was getting as a tag team wrestler more fan mail than Hulk Hogan just seems what?
Yeah,
Like,
I
I don't know
never
that that's
heard that.
possible, right?
Yeah, I never heard that. I mean, I remember the office where the fan mail came,
Right.
and there were bags for Hulk and bundles for everybody else. So I have no idea if he did that or not, but I never heard that.
It leads to a bit of a split with the Hart Foundation. And anytime there is a tag team split, you always wonder, hey, how's this going to go? Um, how did Neidhart take trying things as a single again? Was he ready for that in this era? Do you think? I know they're going to get back together, but
I think
before?
they were both ready for it or let me put it this way. I think they both wanted it
Okay, that's what I meant.
from the standpoint of, boy, I'd like to be out on my own
Right.
versus being in a team, and I feel that I could be a bigger star on my own and what have you. Um, but there's also there's a crutch, there's a safety blanket there with a tag team partner, especially one that is a member of your family that you travel with, that you work with, that, man, they were great. So you're stepping out of your comfort zone and you don't know if it's going to work or not. So there's that little bit of that, that double-edged sword. It's like, do I really want this or not? And I think that both guys were definitely ready to go out on their own. But I think there was also an unknown and a bit of just out of their comfort zone.
Well, and that's really what I meant. I didn't mean are they able or capable of it. I just know that in this era, your payoffs are based on the houses and your spot on the card. And if you had had success as a tag team act, breaking it up into a singles does represent some risk, right?
Yeah, but it also represents a higher reward as well.
Right. Well, let's talk about it. WrestleMania is going to happen in Atlantic City for WrestleMania 4, and that big battle royal comes down to Bret Hart and Bad News Brown. Brown gets the win. He's a damn dirty cheater. Bret smashes the trophy to a big babyface pop. You were there. This is your first WrestleMania. What'd you think of Bret and the tantrum and the trophy?
Um, I think it goes back to the same thing. Like, I talk about what was a baby face then, what constituted a baby face then,
Yep.
and some people might look at that as, well, that's a sore loser, and it's pretty heelish. But yet, the more of a heel you are, the bigger baby face reaction you're probably going to get. So I think everybody would want to do that and be able to smash a trophy and do that. Um, but we were ready. Yeah, we were ready to try Bret on his own and felt that Bret would be a big single. He had a past with Bad News Brown from the Calgary territory when Bad News was there, Bad News Alan Quage. And it's like, all right, if he's going to succeed, let's put him right in there with Bad News and see what we've got, because Bad News really liked Bret too. And, the rest, as I say, is what it was.
And as you know, they all know each other from Stampede, and it winds up where Jim's sort of on the sidelines for some of this. Bret is going to be used to put Bad News over through a lot of the house shows. They're warming Bad News up for a series of matches with Hulk Hogan. So eventually they do put the team back together again, but this time without Jimmy Hart. And that means no Jimmy Hart. The Hart Foundation are baby faces. And the guys have said that this felt like one step backwards for them. But as a fan, I liked it. And hindsight being 2020, it's probably the right move, right?
Well, I think so for them, yes. Bret, we were looking at Bret being a baby face, and okay, maybe the single thing wasn't going to hit the way that we wanted it to at that point in time. And Neidhart was kind of floundering. There wasn't a whole lot for Jim. So putting them back together, you knew what that dynamic was.
Yes.
So putting them back is baby faces, and I'm pretty sure this is right about the time that they were working with the Rougeaus, because the first match that they had is a team, as a babyface team. I think my time frame's right, and I could be off here. Was with the Rougeaus, and Vince had booked for no reason. Brother Love is the guest referee. Other than I wanted to be out on the road and I wanted to do shit. Okay, I'll be guest referee of this match. And I remember having all these things in my head about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. For me, just how my character, fuck them. So I've got all these spots, and I'd run the match by Vince and thrown out how I saw it. And he was like, "No, that's good. You go do it." And I want to say it was Boston was the first match, and I'm laying out the match to them, and as a heel, Brother Love, I was like, I'm going to cut you off every time that you start to do something. I'm going to step in and cut you off and allow the heels to regroup and or tag out or whatever it is on shit. And Brett's getting the hot tag in this match. And as soon as I make the hot tag, you start to make your comeback. I'm going to fucking stop you. Because it was building to a crescendo to where finally they've had enough and they get to me. And the match was built around them getting to me in the end. That I'm screwing them at every turn, that finally when they've had enough and they blow and they beat the shit out of me, and then that's finished. And Brett looks at me and he's like, oh, so let me get this straight. I'm making my first big babyface comeback, and you're going to cut me off? And I'm like, yeah. And he thinks about it for a minute. Like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work. I'm like, but Brett, you're going to kill me in the end. I mean, your comeback is going to be on both of them and me. And that's the big finish. And you guys get to me, and then fucking boom, and we do the finish, and we're out of there. And you guys stand tall, and we fucking powder, and they carry me out. And he's like, well, let's just call it out there and see how it goes. Brett was getting his goddamn babyface finish in.
I love it.
I come hell or high water. But it was fun, man. And I loved working with those guys. I'll never forget. And again, I'm pretty sure it was Boston. Jacques had Jim in a rear, like a camel clutch type, without on the knees and shit. And Jim is looking up, and his eyes are looking around, and he looks at me and says, move. And I moved, and I went back, and as I did that, an ice pick, an actual ice pick, had flown in the ring and stuck right in the mat.
Holy shit.
I'm like, thank you. And kicked it out, and we continued on. But that, yeah, I mean, it was just that close and just stuck right there. And I was on all fours, like right in his face. And he's looking around. He's like, move. Well, okay. I moved. And I'm thinking he's trying to get out. And yeah, he pretty much saved me from an ice pick in my eye. My eye. God, there's an ice pick in my eye. And then every night they would give me their finish, and we got the hell out of Dodge. But I loved it, man. I loved working with those guys. It was a lot of fun. Short-lived, and there was no reason for it other than special attraction. Brother Love is referee.